Starting off this list in our number 10 spot, we have Koh Lip Island. I'll be honest, this is a place that despite the spooky tales is probably still on many people's travel destinations list because it is so beautiful. Like much of Thailand, it truly is seemingly idyllic. When it comes to the haunting scene here, we turn to those who inhabit the island, the KWAI people. They claim to share their island with the whole host of spirits that they call the Hatao. You would think that a ghost-filled island would keep people away, but they've found their own way to keep these spirits appeased, and that is by offering them strawberry pop and cupcakes. I mean, apparently it pays to be a spirit. Sounds pretty awesome. You get to chill on an island and you get pop and cupcakes. Despite the incredible scenery and the amazing hospitality of those who are local to the island, many people report feeling some sort of uneasy presence on Koh Lip Island.
Number 9. Wat Sin Suk Hell Garden. Gardens are supposed to be peaceful. They're supposed to be a place to grow, reflect, swat bees for hours on end, all that good stuff. But when it comes to the Wat Sin Suk Hell Garden, you won't be finding any peace whatsoever. This one's a little odd, a little spooky. Thailand is very spiritual, and this specific garden is home to hundreds of sculptures, each depicting the horrors that are awaiting in Buddhist hell. Yeah, they're very scary to look at. Unlike other gardens in Thailand, this one was built quite recently, believe it or not. The Hell Garden was built in 1986. Now the idea is to keep you from committing any sins, and I gotta admit, they nailed it. Yeah, pretty much did the best they could. Olivia and I like to walk through graveyards for fun sometimes, so I don't know. I personally would love to walk through this. Would you do it?
In our number 8 spot today, we have Mae Ram Phung Beach. For this one, we are taking a trip to the eastern coast of Thailand to the Rayong province. Here lies this beach, which attracts tourists from all over the world. Earlier this year, the shores of this beach were actually hit with the results of an oil spill, but that isn't the most frightening thing that's happened here. Apparently, this area saw a few people who lost their lives in the water, and these horrible incidents happened quite close together. Since then, people have reported a sort of uneasy feeling as they visited the beach, and some have even claimed to have left feeling haunted and have not been able to shake the feeling.
Number 7. Koh Kam Noi Ghost Island. Love the name, Ghost Island. Really gets to the point for this next one here. I like it. Ghost Island, Koh Kam Noi, is located in the eastern Gulf of Thailand. Now it's close to the Chonburi province. There is a plethora of reasons why this island is for sure haunted. Let's list them. During World War II, American soldiers constructed a base on the island. The deep waters surrounding the islands made it a pretty ideal stop for large warships. Now unfortunately, there were swarms of mosquitoes that were also sharing the same island, so a great amount of those soldiers died and had to be buried on Koh Nam Noi Island. Now today there's a Muslim cemetery on the one side and a Chinese cemetery on the other. All things considered, I couldn't imagine a more peaceful resting place.
In our number 6 spot today, we have ATUTTHAYA Historical Park. This national park is a place with incredibly rich history, and it is actually a UNESCO World Heritage Site. The site was founded in 1350 and it became the second capital of Siam after Sukhothai. The site ended up being destroyed by the Burmese in the 18th century, but despite these ruins, even today you can still get the sense of how wonderful this place once was. With history like this, it's definitely no surprise that this place is said to be haunted. The most popular haunting story from this location is in regards to the ghost of Pu Som Phao Sap, who is said to guard the city's treasures. Even Prince Bira of Siam reported seeing this ghostly apparition, and not many people can say that they have a royal backing them up when it comes to their paranormal claims.
Number 5. River Kwai Bridge. I don't like bridges in general. I have no idea how they work structurally. It freaks me out when I look at them and to think about them. When it comes to Hellfire Pass, no chance, not gonna do that one. First of all, big fan of the name. These are all scary names. They hint towards the impending doom. I kinda like it. The River Kwai Bridge saw brutal combat during World War II, but the Death Railway alias actually comes from the dark history during the initial construction of the River Kwai Bridge, where a countless number of prisoners or tradesmen all lost their lives while laying the 260-mile long track. The track runs from Thailand to Burma, and almost all of it is deemed haunted. So yeah, big note from me. Hard pass on this pass.
In our number 4 spot today, we have WATTHANA Deserted House. If you've seen Final Destination, the vibes that this spooky abandoned house is giving will definitely be a little familiar. Legend goes that a group of friends entered this house once to have a little fun in a place they probably shouldn't have been. You know, young people, everyone did stupid stuff, but it turns out there might be a higher price to pay when it comes to this place. Since then, it is said that this group of friends has seen members of the group dying in some strange strange or very elaborate circumstances. One passed away in a car accident, the other in a house fire. It is said that the remaining members of the group believes that they may have been the target of a vengeful spirit that was angry that they entered that house. I hope they all stay far away from roller coasters. And tanning beds, for sure. And maybe just don't drive behind any trucks carrying wood, just to be safe.
Number 3. The SATHORN Unique. Commonly referred to as, you guessed it, Ghost Tower, the SATHORN Unique is a colossal, unfinished skyscraper, and it's gonna stay that way for probably ever. Upon first glance, this looks like any city, right? Cranes sticking out of the building, there's scaffolding just waving like a flag in the wind, it's the usual. Now, not all these construction zones, however, have this many reports of paranormal activity. This building looks massive. You stare up from the streets of downtown Bangkok and you get the chills. Even though construction began in the 90s, the building still has not been completed post-financial crisis. Now, one major incident that deems the SATHORN Unique as haunted took place in December 2014. A photographer snuck into the building to take photos of the sunrise, but instead found the body of a Swedish man on the 43rd floor. It was determined that the man had sadly taken his own life.
In our number 2 spot today, we have the Biok Sky Hotel. The haunting tales of this location can be attributed to the significant number of workforce deaths that have been reported here. During the construction of this luxury hotel, it is said that 3 of the workers fell to their rather untimely deaths. Now, this sky-high tower is said to be haunted by the souls of those who fell. Both staff of the hotel as well as guests staying there have reported seeing things like shadows lurking through the hallways. It doesn't stop here, however. Some guests have even reported their items being moved seemingly on their own, and there's also been reports of just a general feeling of uneasiness, a feeling like they're being watched. It truly gives me shivers just thinking about it, but I'm sure stories like this only make this hotel more desirable for those interested in all things paranormal.
And finally, number 1, Bangpyu Shoe Factory. We'll finish this list off with an abandoned shoe factory located in Samut Prakan. The factory suffered this freak accident that sadly led to many casualties of workers. The air compressor malfunctioned in some way and ultimately it erupted. It was quite fast and very tragic, but the factory owner continued business afterwards anyways. Now after that point, workers one by one ended up leaving. They were quitting their jobs on the spot, all claiming to have encountered the spirits of the previous workers who had lost their lives. Now word spread quite fast, so business slowed down drastically. The owner as well sadly took their own life in the same factory. So it's no surprise that the building remains untouched still to this day.
Starting us off at number 10, the Toyoma Park. Here in the heart of Tokyo lies one of the most haunted places in Japan. While in the day the park is a lively spot filled with picnics and games, at night it becomes a whole different place. As the story goes, during World War II, this area was used as a dumping ground for many prisoners of war, and their bodies remain buried deep across the park. At night, it's said to become haunted as the spirits rise and terrorize any who enter. Those who have dared hear terrifying shrills only to find no one around them, and many have reported seeing hitodoma, a fiery ball of light that appears when a person's soul has been separated from its body. And it's not all myth either. Around 20 years ago, hundreds of bones were unearthed from the park's grounds, and even to this day, fragments of victims are slowly being brought to the surface. Next up at number 9, Sunshine 60. Before it was one of Tokyo's tallest skyscrapers, the land where the Sunshine 60 sits was occupied by a terrifying prison. Sugamo Prison, as it was known, held anarchists, communists, and prisoners of war during the American occupation of Japan, and its infamy comes from the 7 war criminals, one of which was a former prime minister, who were executed on the site. After the prison closed, the public was disturbed to find out they planned on building an entertainment complex on the land, but still the development continued as planned. It's believed the 7 men haunt the building, and over the years there have been countless paranormal sightings of strange apparitions and noises when no one was around. Most disturbing of all, it's said that at night, strange fireballs can be seen floating around the building, terrifying any who happen to be near. Next up at number 8, Oya Shrine. As the legend goes, there was once a woman named Yotsuya who married a masterless samurai. One day she receives a cream that she suspects to be a gift from her husband, but after she uses it, she realizes it was poisonous. Yotsuya, seeing how the cream has disfigured her face, becomes hysterical and accidentally takes her own life while running with a sword. Yotsuya then returns as a revengeful ghost to avenge her death and terrorize her husband for what he did to her. The story was the basis for Yotsuya Kaiden, one of Japan's most infamous ghost stories, and over the years, many strange and inexplicable accidents have occurred at the site. Even today, casts that put on productions of the story go to get permission from the woman's grave so as not to be haunted by her for the rest of eternity. Next up at number 7, Zoshigaya Cemetery. While many places seem to just get spooky after the sun goes down, the Zoshigaya Cemetery is feared at all hours of the day. Those who have dared to visit the site claim to have witnessed strange faces and white hands appearing out of the trees, and 3 people have actually been known to take their own life while on the grounds. Their spirits are thought to haunt the grounds along with many other souls buried deep. As with many other haunted sites, you can hear strange noises if you dare to enter, but the most disturbing occurrence is from several reports of people experiencing temporary paralysis while strolling through the cemetery. Many that have dared to visit once have never returned, in fear that something even worse could happen if they step foot on the property again. Coming in at number 6, the Doryodo Temple. After the tragic killing of an 81-year-old woman in 1963, the Doryodo Temple was thought to be cursed and would never be the same again. It closed after the incident and people immediately kept away from it, fearing the woman would haunt the temple and terrorize those who visited. Then, later in 1973, the body of a missing college student was found there, and it was later discovered her professor, who she was having an affair with, took her life, then set fire to the temple in an attempt to hide the evidence, leaving behind only demolished remains at the site. The name Doryodo roughly means end of the road temple, and over the years of incidents, locals have interpreted it to mean that this is the last place you'll be seen alive. So enter if you dare, you might still hear the screams of those whose last days were at this very spot. Coming in at number 5, Irito. Back in 1923, Irito was the place where many took refuge during the Great Kanto earthquake. Sadly, as the time of the earthquake was when many were cooking in their homes, huge fires broke out all across the city and not many survived. The site was used as a makeshift crematorium where an estimated 38,000 body remains lay, and then, after World War II, a memorial hall was constructed as a place to bury victims from the war. Riddled with ghosts from the tragic earthquake and the war, it's no wonder the hall is believed to be haunted by many of the locals. People walking nearby have reported hearing strange and uncanny noises, and even apparitions of those presumed to have died here all those years ago. Next up at number 4, the Akasaka Weekly Mansion. Although it is a luxury hotel, Akasaka Mansion is also one of the most horrifying places to spend your night. Patrons have reported countless paranormal activities, like strange white mists suddenly appearing from the vents and being grabbed while in bed in the middle of the night. Appliances and lights are known to mysteriously turn on and off independently, but the most terrifying of all is the one account of a woman who said she was actually dragged across the room by a terrifying spirit, and she has the scratch marks along her back to prove it. So unless you are looking to be grabbed in your sleep by a terrifying demon and dragged around the floors of your hotel, I think it's best to stay away from the Akasaka Mansion and book elsewhere. Next up at number 3, the Masakado's grave. While it's not uncommon to assume a grave could be haunted, this one is especially disturbing. Masakado's grave is the resting place of an ancient angry samurai rebel. As As the legend goes, he was decapitated and his head was left on display at a riverbank. For months, its eyes remained open and its teeth grinding, showing no sign of decomposition. Those who passed the head would claim to hear it screeching or yelling, calling out for whoever did this to them to show themselves. Then mysteriously, one day the head disappeared from the riverbank and made its way from Kyoto all the way to Tokyo, where it supposedly rests to this day. It has long been believed that anyone who disturbs the gravesite will be cursed for all eternity and risks serious injury or even death. In the past, people have tested the curse and attempted to build on the site, but plans have always cancelled as workers kept mysteriously dying out of nowhere. So what do you think? Are you brave enough to visit the site to see for yourself if the curse is real? Coming in at number 2, the KWAI Tunnel. In 1989, a cannibal and killer took the life of a young woman and left her mutilated body near the KWAI Tunnel, and ever since, no one dares to return to the area. Locals believe the girl haunts the spot, and frequent reports have been made witnessing the ghost lurking around the tunnel. Some hear noises, some feel a cool chill down their spine, but all that enter feel a strange sensation that they are not alone. The locals were so terrified to visit this spot that the government actually built a new tunnel in 2006 to avoid ever needing to go near it again. One account of a cyclist who accidentally found himself by the tunnel stated he felt something cold and wet grab his ankle, but that nothing was there. Frightened it was the ghost of the girl, he started to run away but could still feel her hands on him, and his leg went completely frozen. To this day, paranormal investigators frequent the haunted tunnel hoping to catch the ghost on camera, but none have been successful. And in our number 1 spot, the Himuro Mansion. Many years ago, this mansion was owned by a very rich family that practiced the occult. Now, as the story goes, a part of their practice was something called the strangling ritual, in which a maiden that had been isolated from birth would be bound at every limb point, and then the ends of those ropes would be attached to 5 oxen, who, when cued, would run and dismember the woman. The ropes would then be soaked in her blood and placed over a portal they believed would keep bad karma away for 50 years. Kind of ironic considering this feels like it would cause their bad karma, but what do I know? Now, as you probably guessed, this particular ceremony did not go as planned, as the chosen maiden had snuck away and met a lover and therefore had not been isolated and was impure and unfit for the ritual. Legend says the lover came to the maiden's rescue during the ritual, and the head of the family decided the solution for all of this was to take the life of all 7 members of his family and then himself. To this day, the mansion is believed to be haunted by the souls of the Himuro family, and visitors that walk past may just hear the screeching voices of a maiden. But be careful, it is said the souls will try to entice visitors to complete their ritual from all those years ago.
Starting off in our number 10 spot, we have Tat Tak School. This school has remained abandoned since 1988, and for fair reason. The city in which the school resides has a dark history that is said to include a few World War era massacres and all of the atrocities involving that sort of thing. It is said that the remains from some of these horrible acts were buried in the hill next to the school. Shortly before the school closed in 1988, the headmistress took her own life in one of the bathrooms while wearing a red dress, supposedly leaving behind a spirit that appears to people dressed in red. The creepiest story relating to this haunting happened in 2011 when students were exploring the abandoned school. While here, one of the students saw the lady in red, which led to them all running for the hills, but as they began to run away, one of the students began showing strange, violent behavior that had never been seen before. An ambulance ended up being called because of the entire ordeal. This is all to say that this school appears as just a broken down, forgotten about place, but there's clearly something more sinister here. In our number 9 spot today, we have 31 Granville Road. If you're a person who is interested in true crime, you might be familiar with this place already, because it is the site of the infamous and horrifying Hello Kitty killing. Back in 1999, a 23-year-old woman named Fan Men Yi was working as a host at a nightclub and needed money money to help support herself and her young son when she made the decision to steal the wallet of one of the clients of her workplace. She was caught for the stealing, and while she returned the money, the man demanded that she also pay him a steep fine in return for the action. She said she just needed some time to gather the cost he was asking for, but unfortunately just a few days later, this man, with the help of some accomplices, would kidnap Fan and keep her locked up for a month. She sadly suffered incredibly horrific things and later succumbed to her injuries and passed away. The address of where this all took place was an apartment building at 31 Granville Road. In 2012, the apartment was demolished, and in 2016, a new hotel was built on the site, but even still, people have reported being haunted by the ghost of this young woman. Whether haunted or not, hearing the details of this story, it totally makes sense why people would get an eerie feeling just being around that area at all. In our number 8 spot today, we have Dragon Lodge. Dragon Lodge sits on the Peak, which is one of the most expensive areas in Hong Kong for real estate, and while that means that it comes with a heavy price tag, it is also rich with terrifying tales. Dragon Lodge is said to have had many owners throughout the years, the first of which being the man who built it, but in 1920 he went bankrupt and was forced to sell it. During World War II, the lodge was occupied by Japanese soldiers, some of which are said to have taken the lives of Catholic nuns in the front courtyard. By the time the 1980s rolled around, Dragon Lodge was already referred to as one of Hong Kong's most haunted places, but despite the rumblings, the property was purchased again and there were plans for some retail development. These plans fell through, however, because when construction workers began to do some work, they too became convinced of its paranormal nature. The workers continually reported the sounds of a crying child coming from the mansion and refused to continue to work on it. Since then, the mansion has remained completely untouched. In our number 7 spot today, we have the Sai Ying Pun Community Complex. This complex was first built in 1892, but its original purpose was to house medical staff. This was until the Second World War took place, and during this time it is said to have turned into quite a gruesome execution ground, and after this, the site later became a psychiatric hospital, and after it was abandoned, it was badly damaged when trespassers set fires in it, really just setting the stage for an exceptionally eerie location. In 1998, the building was given a new life once again, and it was turned into a community complex, but now there are plenty of strange reports coming from the building. While they preserved the granite exterior, inside people have reported hearing the sounds of a woman crying, mysterious footsteps. There have been alleged sightings of a devil-like man wearing traditional clothing roaming around the halls. There's said to be a ghost that bursts into flames. This is all to say that there are plenty of ghosts here. While they are trying to do their best to rebrand this haunted location, the nickname High Street Haunted House hasn't quite escaped it yet. In our number 6 spot today, we have the Louis Seng Chung. Back in 2012, this location was turned into a Chinese medicine and healthcare center for Baptist University, but prior to that, it sat empty for decades due to the haunting tales that come from within. It is said that there were plans to remodel the building a while ago, back in the 80s, but those working on the building, construction and cleaning crew alike, began to fall ill one by one. At first I thought that there were probably just some toxic chemicals in the building or something like that, but it wasn't the same illness. Things were different, and sometimes it wasn't illness, it was a fatal accident. Things were also disappearing, and this all led to the work on the building being stopped. Some of the workers even reported seeing figures, like a group of children playing soccer, but instead of a ball, it was a head. Sometimes at night, the upper level floors would light up on their own and shadowy figures could be seen roaming around the hallways. In our number 5 spot today, we have Bride's Pool. While Bride's Pool is gorgeous, it's a rock pool with waterfalls surrounding it. It gets its name and haunting story from a tragic accident. Legend goes that 4 men were carrying a bride-to-be to her groom's village on a chair, and to get to the village they needed to pass over the pool. As they pass over one of the waterfalls, one of the men slipped on a rock and all of them fell below into the pool, sadly passing away in the tragic accident. Now the bride, having never made it to her groom, awaits at the bottom of the pool, waiting for her groom to return. There have also been reports of people taking their lives here, and in 1982, at one point, there were even human remains discovered that turned out to belong to a man who was killed by his fiancée. The horrible stories clearly just don't end, and they even extend up to the road that sits above the pool, which now has the nickname of the Deadly Curve, based on the high number of accidents that resulted into fatalities. Maybe it's just the bad luck of the pool. In our number 4 spot today we have the Murray House. This is another one of these spots that now has a life far past its haunting history. The Murray House is now the home to restaurants that sit on the waterfront and places to shop, but it once was the officers' quarters of the Murray Barracks in 1846. Flash forward a bit to the Japanese occupation, and this building was seeing horrifying crimes carried out against the citizens of Hong Kong. From here, stories of ghosts and hauntings at the site became so bad that the government actually ordered for there to be 2 exorcisms there, one in 1963 and one in 1974, and they were aimed at freeing these souls who were clearly stuck here. Eventually the building was dismantled and all of the items in the house were moved into storage for a while before, in 2000, it was decided to move and rebuild the structure to Stanley, where it still stands now. In our number 3 spot today we have the Namku Terrace. This location was first built in 1915 by a wealthy family who was involved in the silk trade. The same family lived here until World War II when they were forced to flee the city. Once abandoned by the family, soldiers began to seize property in the area to hold people and items, and this specific location was used to house women who were being held by the soldiers. These soldiers did horrific things to these women, some leading to the women passing away, and since these incredibly atrocious acts, the terrace has constantly had stories coming from it that tell the tales of ghosts wandering the house. Some passerbys even hear screaming coming from the home and see strange shadows in the windows. Back in 2003, a group of students decided to try and camp out for a night in the haunted house in the hopes of seeing a ghost, but in the end they got a lot more than they bargained for. Police ended up being called when one of the students claimed to be possessed by a spirit and ended up needing to be hospitalized. In the end, the home sat completely vacant for 18 years until recently, when the current owners expressed their plans to restore the building. In our number 2 spot today we have Solo Pun. This abandoned village has a name that means locked compass, and this name comes from the reports that compasses very creepily seem to stop working nearby and in this village. The exact reason for the abandonment of this village is unknown. There are plenty of stories, however. Some believe that everyone went missing overnight, others believe that the villagers died on the way to a wedding in a boating accident and the survivors couldn't stand to remain in the village. Whatever the reason, the village appears as if one day everybody just up and left, never to be seen again. This is why this spot is now a heavily visited area. It definitely gives that eerie, uneasy feeling when you're around it. If you were to take a trip there, the closest road is about 3 hours away, however, so you'll find yourself hiking for quite a good chunk of that trip. In our number 1 spot today we have the White House Compound. Also known as the Victoria Road Detention Center, this place is familiar to many as it was used as a place to hold political prisoners and those suspected of spying during the 1967 riots. This means that it was also a place where many people were treated horribly, harmed, and executed. Prisoners were held in tiny cells under horrible conditions, and some even were held in solitary confinement for months on end. After the end of the riots, the place was abandoned, and it was forgotten about by many, except for those who knew what kind of horrors happened inside. From the time it was abandoned up until quite recently, this place was unmarked. There weren't signs, and it wasn't even placed on maps. That was until 2018, when it was converted into an overseas campus for the University of Chicago Booth School of Business as a way to redevelop the site and hopefully give it a much brighter future.
Number 9, we have the East Tahang Glass Walk. The bridge in the Tahang Mountains is both thrilling and terrifying. The glass platform is 3,800 feet in the air and is affixed to the mountainside. If you had vertigo, you would not be feeling so great standing on this glass-bottomed walkway staring down into the abyss. There are videos of people literally freaking out as they walk over the bridge, fear and panic sets in, but even worse, the bridge features a joke cracking effect that's caused people to heavily freak out. Not only that, the cracking effect comes with sound that would really get me. A lot of people have hailed the effect as extremely cruel and dangerous, but China doesn't care. Coming into number 8, we have the Delinga test sites. Not that you could get anywhere near it, but Delinga County is home to a worrying nuclear test site. 12 years ago, Delinga was totally out of limits to foreigners. These days you can go there, but the bases in the northern reaches of the country are army patrolled. Even if they weren't, you really wouldn't fancy wading into a nuclear wasteland. There are 36 launch pads in and around Delinga. Coming into number 7, we have the North Korean border. The North Korean border is a dangerous place to be for obvious reasons, and it would be even scarier if you were alone. There are some reports that the Chinese military might be up to something over there too. Border regions are always sensitive places to be, but the river that separates China and North Korea at Dedong is particularly so because it's so small. As a non-Asian, you may encounter some issues at the area. While the Dedong and Bridge of Friendship area is safe enough for careful tourists, there are some parts of the China-North Korea border which are not very well defined. Accidentally strolling into North Korean territory is a genuine risk. Coming into number 6, we have the Lotus Pond. The Lotus Pond in the University of Hong Kong looks like a place I would love to visit. It's beautiful. I can imagine sitting here and doing some quiet reflection. I'd probably be alright doing this, but if you're a man, you shouldn't ever come here alone. The pond is at the centre of a ghost story involving a lost love. A young couple who would meet by the pond planned to run away together. The girl arranged to meet her love by the pond at midnight and they were about to start their journey, only he didn't show up. As she headed home, worried and devastated, she saw her boyfriend with another girl. She burst into tears and in her anguish she threw herself into the pond and drowned. To this day, if a man is walking alone by the pond at midnight, he should be very careful. If he sees a girl, he shouldn't talk to her, as the story goes that the girl's ghost appears after the stroke of 12 and looks to drag men into a watery grave if they engage with her. Coming into number 5, we have Chennai number 81. This terrifying building is located in Beijing and is at the centre of a lot of mysticism. The building is sometimes known as the Chennai Church and it is thought that it used to be used for religious purposes before it was taken over by the communists. The house used to be owned by a Nationalist Party officer, but he then fled to Taiwan, leaving his wife. She in turn hung herself at the home, and her screams are said to be heard wailing out to this day. Again, to this day, the house, which is supposed to be prime real estate, is abandoned and overgrown with ivy. Why? Some say that a number of those who have entered the house have simply not left. Guessing you absolutely don't want to go here alone. This scary house was the setting for a Chinese horror film in 2014 called The House That Never Dies. Rightio then. Coming into number 4, we have the tomb of Qin Shi Huang. The tomb of the former Chinese emperor Qin Shi Huang was discovered when the Terracotta Army was unearthed. The emperor was largely considered to be the first ever emperor of China, having unified 6 fighting states. His death in 210 BC was a big deal, and he entered the afterlife with terracotta replicas of his army, his horses, his family, and his servants. The Terracotta Army was discovered in 1974 in Xi'an and was a pretty special place. It's a great place to visit, but definitely very eerie. The thing is that the actual mausoleum, the burial chamber of the emperor, is out of bounds, and it always has been. The Chinese government simply will not let you in. Now, excavations are banned, and if you were caught there, you would have to answer to armed guards. Beyond that, who knows what spooks lay in wait. It is said that the earth near the tomb is also booby-trapped. On top of that, we all know what happened when the Egyptian tombs were opened. You don't want to be dealing with that level of pestilence, especially not alone. Coming into number 3, we have Subway Line 1. In Beijing, I would be pretty terrified to ride Subway Line 1 alone. The line was first constructed in 1965 and its build was fraught with accidents, including broken equipment and injury or death to workers. It seems that the original build disturbed souls whose graves were disturbed as construction was taking place. As a result, monks were brought in to pacify the spirits. The monks promised the spirits that the metro would close before 11 PM, as it said the dead really like resting between 11 and 1 AM. Right. Honestly, is this just the government's way of taking night trains off the menu? To add spookiness to an already potentially haunted situation, there are 4 ghost stations along Subway Line 1, 2 of which are located in a military region. An abandoned station on a haunted train line. Honestly, rather you than me. Coming into number 2, we have the Forbidden City. China's Forbidden City is said to be deeply haunted. The Forbidden City is an imperial palace from the Ming dynasty to the Qing dynasty. The World Heritage Landmark gets its name from a time when public entrance was forbidden except for the members of the imperial family. The complex has seen some ghastly things over the years, including numerous executions and murders. Since 1925, the Forbidden City has slowly been opening up to visitors, and now 75% of it is available for viewing. However, there are still some secret rooms and courtyards that you're not allowed to visit. The chances of you being alone in the day in the city are pretty slim, seeing as there's around 16 million people visit every year, but at night, well, that's a scarier time altogether. Night staff have reported some terrifying things going on, including strange animals, ghosts, dogs, ghost dogs as well, menacing presences, and a weeping woman in white. I honestly really wouldn't fancy being alone here at night. Finally, coming into number 1, we have the Gobi Desert. The Gobi Desert borders China and Mongolia and is not a place to be visited solo. Aside from deserts being stressful places for solo trips anyway because of the harsh elements and the isolation, this desert is in particular pretty extreme. It's said to be home to the legendary Mongolian deathworm, which doesn't sound like a thing I want to party with. The Mongolian deathworm first came to light in the West when explorer and naturalist Roy Chapman Andrews wrote about his expedition into the Gobi in 1926. It's said to be between 2 and 5 feet long, so up to 1.5 meters. Reports have said it's supposed to be shaped like a sausage with neither head nor tail. It's poisonous and touching it could induce death. Not only that, some accounts say that the worm spews deadly sulfuric acid and emits a strangely deadly electrical charge. Venturing into a desert on your own is a bad idea, but how would you face the Mongolian deathworm solo?
Coming in number 10, we have the Hiroshima Haunted Peace Memorial. No one has ever forgotten the Hiroshima and Nagasaki incident in which the atomic bomb destroyed the lives of around 140,000 people. The attack took place at the Hiroshima Professional Industrial Promotion Hall, which is now changed to the Hiroshima Peace Memorial. Now 75 years later, the survivors of the faithful and historic day are old and their stories are fading through the sands of time. The memorial, which is a popular attraction to pay respects and learn about, the devastation that the atomic bomb caused, which is absolutely insane that something like that actually took place. Well, it caused the place to be extremely eerie. The place has been claimed to be haunted as the people nearby have heard uncanny videos near the dome. Not only this, but there have been numerous incidents of electronic voice phenomena where you can actually hear the atomic bomb exploding itself. At number 9, Himuro Mansion, the grisly murders just located outside of Tokyo. Himuro Mansion is believed to be one of the airiest places in Japan. This mansion have witnessed some of the most bizarre activities like cult practices and gruesome murders. According to the local lore, the family in this mansion practiced the a ritual which is called Shinto, and this is to seal off bad karma on Earth every 50 years. But the ritual got tainted as a lover once saved his maiden from being sacrificed. After this, the master killed everyone in the family and then took his own life. The ghost of the family member still lingers in the mansion and tries to attract people so as to complete the taintful ritual. Since then, numerous have emerged of odd occurrences happening in and around the house. Blood splatters appear on the walls. Photographs taken of particular window reveals the image of a ghostly girl, and perhaps most disturbingly, the dead bodies of which would be explorers, well, they have allegedly been found on the property with rope marks around their wrists. And I'm not sure how much I believe these reports, but even so, not a happy place, the Himuro Mansion. And here's an even crazier plot twist of the story. Many people question if the house even exists. In 2002, Temco released a survival horror video game called Fatal Frame, which was for the PlayStation 2 in the US. Players controlled a young woman named Miku Hinaski, where she searched the haunted mansion for her missing brother Mafuyu. The mansion, of course, was the Himuro Mansion, and according to the game's opening screen, it was based on a true story. Up next, number 8, Round Schoolhouse, which is a creepy building. Scary apparitions, noisy ghosts, floating lights, irregular shapes, abandoned vehicles, every paranormal activity in the book have been rumored to have happened at the Round Schoolhouse in Hokkaido. The school was built in a distinctive round shape in 1906 and run like an elementary school. However, it shut down in the 1970s, and since then it's been abandoned. Soon after, these stories of paranormal sightings started coming in, and several paranormal enthusiasts made a beeline to check out these stories. Many of them came back with troubling stories of things they saw and heard, and it is said that a few of them returned raving mad and talked incoherently. Perhaps the first report of paranormal activity at the school was an instance of a little girl who was spirited away right in front of her classmates. According to the legend, searches for the missing girl turned up nothing from the police. After the closure, more rumors spread. Coming in hot at number 7 on this list, the old Inaki Tunnel in the spot of a gruesome murder, and it's located deep within the mountains of Fukuoka. In December of 1988, the charred remains of a man aged 20 years old was found within this mountain's tunnel. The perpetrators of this gruesome act were reported to be a group of teenage boys. The area also has a history that goes back over 1,000 years as a training ground for the esoteric Buddhist practitioners who claim the area to be a spiritual hotspot of lost souls. These claims were later backed by modern spiritualists who visited the mountains area in the aim of recording a television special, but promptly refused to go further due to the foreboding spiritual atmosphere. The tunnel itself has been sealed off with concrete blocks, but an opening in the top of the tunnel still allows entry for anyone foolish enough to climb down. Well, this tunnel is no longer in use, and it's far off from a beaten path, meaning no assistance would be able to reach you if you were in an emergency situation. Number 6, we're bringing you one of the Bonin Islands in the Pacific Ocean, far south of the Japanese mainland. Iwo Jima Island has forever been ingrained in the culture consciousness as a historic battlefield in World War II. However, its significance doesn't stop there, as it was the home to Mount Surbachi, a 161 meter high volcano, and it's been listed as one of the most dangerous active volcano in the world according to the University of Manchester. It is said that there is a chance of this volcano erupting sometime in the next 100 years, which would in turn lead to huge 25-meter high tsunami waves hitting the coast of both China and Japan, leading to a potential death toll in the millions. The ghost stories of Iwo Jima are not surprisingly related to the 40-day battle waged on the island, in which many thousands of soldiers on both the US and the Japanese side lost their lives. Okay, we're halfway there. Number 5, we've got Okikiwa, well, the Shrieking Banshee. Within the Himeji Castle is an old well with a very intriguing tale of love and tragedy. It is one of the most haunted places in Japan, as it's where a ghost appears at night and screams. The ghost is the spirit of Okiku, a young girl who served the samurai Aoyama Tessen. Aoyama loved Akiku, but his love was not reciprocated in what could be termed as harassment today. He hid a valuable article and blamed it on Okiku. He offered not to punish her if she became his lover, but Akiku wasn't gonna have any of it. She refused to accept it. In a fit of rage, Aoyama threw her in the well, killing her. This is why she can still be heard wailing in silence of the night, just screaming over and over again in the well. Number 4, Camp Hansen. The lone soldier World War II created a lot of destruction in Japan and left behind many dead soldiers. One such place which has witnessed this is Camp Hansen in Okinawa. The camp is a United States Marine Corps base and supports over 6,000 Marines. It is said that a lone soldier appears in a blood-stained World War fatigues and asks for cigarettes from those nearby. This even led to the closing of the Gate 3 where the soldier's ghost has been sighted, and because of this, it is counted among the most haunted places in Japan. And next up, number 3 on this list of places that you should not visit. And we're talking about Zoshigeya Cemetery, in a place where people are unwilling to visit at any point of the day. Some people have claimed to witness faces and white hands appearing from the trees. 3 people have committed suicide at this place, and it is believed that their souls remain there and they terrify lone wanderers. Zoshigeya Cemetery is counted in as one of the most haunted places in Tokyo. Number 2, we have the Labyrinth, the Scary Hospital. If you're looking for a haunted house attraction in Japan, but you want something more exciting than the Huse 10 Bosch, Then head to Fuji-Q Highland Theme Park. The haunted house at the theme park is one of the best in the country and will truly leave you shook. The house is based on a hospital theme and it is inspired by a real hospital at the base of Mount Fuji, where a hospital harvested body organs and they take it from unwitting patients. It is said that these patients come back to haunt the doctors, and it is in the presence of the labyrinth. It's 900 meters of pure gore, horror, and tricks that will leave you wondering if this is just an attraction or if this house is really haunted. I'll leave that one up to you guys. Number 1 on this list, we're talking about Aokigahara Forest, in infamous both inside Japan and internationally. This place receives the moniker of Suicide Forest due to abnormally high numbers of suicide confirmed within. Furthermore, this forest is supposedly the second most popular place in the world to commit suicide in, only surpassed by the Golden Gate Bridge, which is absolutely insane. Didn't know that fact until doing the research for this video. The popularity of the forest as a suicide spot has led to signs urging those who enter to reconsider and to seek help. Suicides here are so frequent, in fact, that police and volunteers conduct monthly searches for bodies that have chosen the forest for their final moments. Despite their best efforts to find and remove the remains, the chance of encountering a corpse, on a hike is very likely. Within 35 square kilometers of wilderness at northwest base of Mount Fuji, the area is undoubtedly a beautiful landscape, but it has been proven to be the final stop to many souls. Huguan Huiguan Opera House creeps into number 10. This building was initially intended to house the thousands of people who had lost their homes, and this is during World War II. However, this building was constructed on an ancient graveyard, so it is said that these angry spirits are haunting the building. Today, this building has been converted into an opera house, and several tourists have claimed that they hear a screaming voice coming from a graveyard when no one is even there. Well, the yelling is obviously coming from down under. And legend says that if you throw a stone in the graveyard, an angry spirit will scold you forever. I don't think I'm gonna be brave enough to even try it. There's absolutely no way. Burma Inn stabs its way into number 9. A guest was staying at this hotel when he was poisoned years ago by the head chef. The chef was so overwhelmed by guilt, so he stabbed himself to death that same night. Legend has it that the ghost of the murdered man now haunts the hotel, constantly looking for the head chef so that he can get some revenge. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I wouldn't ever want to become the head chef. Now, in at number 8, we're talking about Dragon Lodge. During the time when the Japanese had control, 7 Catholic nuns were executed here. Neighbors regularly complained about hearing weird and scary houses, and this is throughout the night. Oh, and also the last person to live here said that they saw a ghost of a child with thick matted hair, and they were wearing a white lace nightgown. Yeah, I think I'd move far away too if I saw this creepy ghost. Chow Ne Church creeps into number 7. So this church was built in the 20th century by the Catholic Church, and it housed British missionaries who were living in Beijing. Local legend has it that the priest who originally helped build this church disappeared without a trace within the walls of the church, and later on, a woman committed suicide in the church. People have claimed that you can hear her screams in the corridor of the church, and you can even see her spirits lingering in the halls. People have also said that once they entered the church, they feel a sense of doom and uneasy. The Imperial Palace, Beijing, makes its way onto this list at number 6. This is without a doubt a staple when you're visiting China, but the Imperial Palace is also known to be haunted with poltergeists and ghosts. The Imperial Palace was built over 600 years ago, and it was the site of many executions, betrayals, and murders. When the palace was opened up to the public in the 1940s, staff members and visitors would report seeing a woman dressed in black, and when you go to speak to her, she would turn around, but she would have no face. Tak Tak School creeps us out in at number 5. This old and spooky abandoned school used to be a site of a Japanese massacre during World War II. This place is infamously known as the most haunted school in Hong Kong because the girls' washroom has the ghost of an old principal who committed suicide there, and she is wearing a red dress. She will shriek at anything who is brave enough to get close to her. High Street Community Center, Hong Kong takes the number 4 spot. This building used to be occupied by Japanese soldiers who were executed and tortured thousands of disobedient Hong Kongers. Later on, this place was converted into a mental asylum, but it has been abandoned since the 1960s. Well, rumors have it that you can still hear the screams through the halls, and a creepy figure roams the building, and if you make eye contact with it, the figure will burst into flames. Okay, so up next, number 3 is the White House compound. This is an ancient colonial building that used to be called the Mount Davis concentration camp. This used to be a place where drug-induced torture, interrogations, and murders happened. So it's safe to say that this place is probably super haunted. Some people have reported that they have heard some loud, creepy screams at night, and they have seen some headless figures through the windows. Bride's Pool falls onto this list at number 2. Don't let this picture fool you. I know this place looks beautiful and serene, but I wouldn't recommend you visit there. And that's because a group of pirates once murdered all of the neighboring villagers and dumped their bodies in this pool of water. So now water ghosts supposedly haunts this area, and they're still waiting for a helpless kid to fall in so they can possess its body. The Great Wall of China tops this list in at number 1. This is regarded as one of the world's greatest wonders. It is known for its 5,000-mile long extension and stunning views. But during the construction, an estimated 1 million soldiers died while building the wall. Now, visitors have claimed that they have seen the ghost of the soldiers walking around the wall, or they have reported that they have even heard marching steps. The north part of the wall is where the most ghost activity is reported. Lots of hikers have died around this area from very strange and unexplainable accidents.